Hello, everyone. Testing, testing. Hopefully you can hear me. All right, Mike, my backstage producer, says we're good. Hello, happy Wednesday, everyone. This is Valerie, in case you don't know who I am, and if you're new to the Newsfloor and Lost Resort. Every week, we typically gather here to talk about dance music news, new releases, exciting things that are happening in the dance music space. But as probably most everyone knows, it's been a weird week, guys. There's been a lot of sad and hard to process news. I think for this episode specifically, I wanted to make some space to talk with not only an awesome artist and a special guest and a friend of mine, Toki Monsta, who I think many of you guys will be familiar with, especially if you do follow Lost Resort as a channel already. But to just make some space and talk about things that we're feeling and process what has happened. Hey, Allie, thanks for joining. So if somehow you've been living under a rock, or if you haven't kept up with the news, last week on March 16th, there was a pretty devastating mass shooting that occurred in the Cherokee County area in Atlanta, Georgia. 8 people were killed, 9 of whom were Asian. And this occurred across 3 different locations at 3 different spas, which were specifically targeted because actually, you know what? I'm not even going to get into the excuse of why the excuse was given, because I don't really believe that it deserves the space, honestly. But yeah, I wanted to make some space because I think that, you know, as an Asian American woman myself and someone who comes from a family of Asian Americans and knows many people and have been speaking with many people over this past week, it's been really hard. It's been a lot of up and down emotions of being really sad, upset, angry, feeling fearful, you know, definitely. I think especially closer to the actual incident happening, a lot of people were expressing how they felt scared to even go outside because you never really know. These attacks have been so random. Hey there, Teen Bao. Teen Bao's asking what we're talking about. If you are just tuning in, I am Valerie, and we are making space today to talk with a special guest who's going to be joining us very soon. Her name is Toki Monsta. She's a wonderful artist, and today we're just making some space. You know, we typically talk about dance music news and new releases that are happening this week, but today we wanted to make space to talk about the incident that happened last week, where 6 Asian women and 8 total victims were killed in Atlanta, Georgia. And just as 2 Asian women ourselves, I think each of us individually have been processing what's been going on our social media and, you know, sharing our experiences, talking with others who also feel scared and hurt. Yes, this is live, D the Gamer. And yeah, I just wanted to have her on today. And I appreciate, you know, she's always been someone who is not only artistically really bold and creative and smart, but just someone in general as a person who is innovative within her career, not only with music, but pretty much with everything she does, with fashion, with food, and even diving into like the tech space. And of course, you know, when all this stuff happened, she was one of the first to also, you know, speak out and reach out to her community. So, you know, there's been a lot of stuff that it's bubbled up for people who relate to the victims. And I just wanted to invite her, and we're just going to have a, you know, free-flowing conversation about how we're feeling, things that it's brought up for ourselves, and hopefully some, you know, action items for things that can be done. For those who are watching and just tuning in, you should be seeing hopefully some chat bots drop in a couple links that I think are great places to direct your attention to if you haven't already, some donation links and some other sort of hubs for information like news and staying up to date with these incidents that have been occurring and unfortunately likely will continue to occur. I think that's been my number one takeaway so far of, receiving a lot of great support. I was airing things out on my own social media and had a lot of friends who were reaching out, saying that they were thinking of me and, supporting things that we were sharing. But I did actually have a couple people reach out with great intentions and just also expressing that they had no idea that stuff like this was happening. That last week's incident was not a singular incident, even though, of course, it was one that, got a lot of attention because of the severity and the level of tragedy and the level of death. But these attacks have been happening to various parts of the Asian community for definitely this past year. I think a lot of it was triggered by coronavirus and a lot of the things that our former president was saying, calling it the Kung flu and, blaming China and really adding that into his rhetoric. And it started with, I think, friends of mine experiencing harassment where they were in cities and public places, and people would come up to them and harass them both physically and verbally, telling them, that it was their fault that this was coming, that the virus had arrived, that they should go back to where they came from. And that quickly escalated with other stories that I personally heard of people getting, physically harassed, physically assaulted as well for doing nothing but just existing and looking a certain way. And then it continued to escalate. I think over the past few months, the Asian American community has seen a lot of violence towards the elderly, which is honestly so hard to fathom that someone would go out of their way to push an elderly person or to harm an elderly person, no matter what their identity was. But these incidents were happening often and commonly, and I noticed that a lot of people were not aware of them. A lot of folks that reached out to me said that they were shocked that this was happening once they finally were reading, pieces of press that were kind of highlighting that this wasn't just an isolated incident. So anyways, it's been a tough week. I'm really excited to have Toki on. She is actually here online, and I'm seeing a lot of friends in the chat. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Nat, Christina, Peter Don's Lens, Lewis. So without further ado, I'm going to bring her up. Let's see if she's ready. Hey, Jen.
Okay. Hey. Wow.
Hi.
It's so much like closer on your program than it was. I'd be like, let's see how wide
we can go far. Ready? We can go far.
Oh.
Would you prefer to go far?
Oh, it doesn't really matter. I was just really surprised because it's kind of like when you open your phone and it's on selfie mode and you're not really prepared. You're like, whoa.
I do, but you look great. You're actually well framed, and I'm gonna do this because it feels like we're closer together. It feels like we're in the same room. Almost in the same room. Honestly, I feel like we've been in panels, I guess, together for pretty often over the past few weeks that I kind of feel like we've been hanging out. But hi. I just want to say, it's so nice to like have you on for this. And I think I've kind of told you and said it to you on social media, but like, I just wanted to thank you, first of all, for making the time, because I know we're going to get into like the fact that this is actually a really busy week for you, just being a musician and doing lots of things that you already had planned ahead of time. I know personally, I felt like a little tired and sad and like beaten down, even to the point where I was like, I didn't know if I wanted to do an episode this week. I didn't know if I like had the mental space to like prepare a conversation and really talk about it, besides like just ranting on my social media. So you definitely helped to inspire me. And I know that we were messaging and you said something along the lines of like, it's our responsibility. We have to say something because there are so few Asian American women especially in this music space that we operate in. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. And I guess start with like a status check on like, how are you doing? How are you feeling today? Every day is a different day.
Yeah, it definitely seems to change. And, my mood changes as well. What I am finding, okay, there's a few things. So I'll get upset at different things at different times. And what I'm finding is, let's say one issue right now, I'm sure you prefaced, everyone's who's watching is pretty aware of what's going on in the US and kind of around the world. And one of the things that was kind of upsetting in the beginning was kind of how people were not showing up, people that you thought were your friends, people that you dated, all these people that, you thought would check in on you and see how you're doing and ask you questions. And no one really did any of that. Like a lot of friends didn't say anything. They didn't use their platform for anything. They kind of just ignored it. And that's kind of what the problem is, right? It's people have been ignoring the Asian plight to the fact that we're looked at as this, quote, again, like the model minority, where it's like people think that we don't face any of the same problems as other minorities, but we totally do. And that was really disappointing. And I've seen friends say things like, the 10 dudes I slept with that weren't like the 10 like non-Asian dudes I slept with, like not a single one of them checked in on me. People that I dated, people that I thought like cared about me, and the kind of conclusions people came to. But I think it was hasty on my part to be super upset, because sometimes people don't know how to approach a very touchy subject. And lots of friends have come out in support, have sent me text messages, phone calls, even people that are like slightly distant, friends, they still checked in. So I was quite surprised at the humanity and the empathy that so many people do have. And, there's still a lot of people you see that don't say anything, but.
Yeah. I mean, I literally felt exactly the same way. I think the incident happened a week from today. It was on a Wednesday. Obviously, just kind of registering all of that was like one day of processing and getting really upset. And then I feel exactly the same way. The next day I woke up and I was like, I think the next day was more of just like fear and like talking to my mom and my family and being like, maybe we should stay inside for a while. And then the next day after that, I specifically remember I woke up thinking that exact same thought. I was like noticing on social media, I was like, who hasn't spoken up? Because, 3 days is a little bit of that buffer where you're like, you've heard about the news, people are talking about it. And I remember feeling so angry and feeling this weird pull between of like, Asian people are so trained, to like put things away, like put your emotions to the side, because like, the stereotype rings true sometimes of like, we are taught to be like the quiet ones, to just like not, rock the boat and just deal with things internally, which is why I think a lot of, our family deal with emotions in that way. And I remember even thinking how strange it was to feel this battle inside of me being like, I am upset that some people, like you mentioned, like people you've dated or people that like benefit from Asian culture in some way, haven't spoken up yet or haven't like found the time to do it in a public way. And then also at the same time being like, should I be upset? Like maybe it's, making excuses for them in a way, but like it's just a weird like mental space of like all these emotions like coming up, I guess. So I fully relate to that. But I mean, I'm interested for you, you have such a strong and large, like fan base, community, people who are like interacting with you on a daily basis on your social media. Did you feel like, besides people personally reaching out to you, did you feel like you were seeing people like take action that you were proud of, or what did you like hope to see more of?
It's hard to navigate anything like this because people want to be very careful. They don't want to further offend you. You're already triggered and agitated, and I know it's what it's like. And it's a big step forward. And also this other idea where if you have benefited off of, the privilege that you gain from, the society that we live in, sometimes you don't even know things are problems, and you need people to point it out and be like, hey, this is happening. You didn't know it, but this is a problem. And it's not really their fault. They're so blind, like, I mean, if I was, when we benefit off of a system as well as, Asians do have a little bit of that as well, of course, it's hard for you to see what the problems are. And what I'm noticing that is good that people have been doing is just pointing out that this exists. The more people see that, oh, a lot of people are starting to post about this. This is actually a big issue. I had no idea. And that's the main thing, right? Everyone's like, well, I had no idea that this was a thing that people were dealing with. And it was to the point when people have been talking about this violence since last year, since COVID kind of start, but it's really the beginning of this year, like January or so, where you started seeing kind of like the Asian community, sort of like Next Shark and that stuff, highlighting the violence that was happening in a more visual way, where we all got a sense of how bad it really was.
Yeah.
Even though it had been going on this entire time. And now we're seeing like, the elder abuse and all these people that were getting hurt. We're like, wow, this is actually a big deal. We didn't even know how bad it was.
Yeah.
So we can't blame for others not catching on right away. But, if they see it and they know it's bad, I think there's some responsibility to do something, maybe just a repost. So little things mean a lot,
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's why the conversation around once the story broke and the media was starting to publish it and, their refusal to kind of label it as a hate crime, that definitely was where that whack. Sensitivity, so very whack. And like, I feel like that's where like that sensitivity comes from. Cause it's like, if you don't call it for what it is, it's just another brick on top of all the layers of like people not talking about it, people pushing down those stories and people saying like, oh, this isn't super important. And I think a lot of people underestimate the value of like even just like a story repost and shouting about it on your own Instagram, even if you have like 300 followers or whatever, you have a small following, but it's like if everyone is doing that, the media has to pay attention. And I don't even know where they landed with it. I think they still have not fully called it a hate crime, but I don't know. I mean, that's just a tough part, but yeah. I wanted to, I guess, I'm like, I have these questions written out and then I'm just like ranting. So it's like, I'm just ranting.
It's okay. No, I mean, that's, I think this is a good conversation for people to see. And, just by watching, like for every person here that's watching this conversation and just picking up on our experiences, you're already making a difference. You're already proactively participating in something that will shift the narrative into something more positive. And because you could do that, you could be watching this or you can not. And I think what's really valuable here is the conversation between you, an Asian woman, and me, another Asian woman, and things that we can talk about that people will definitely not get, but we will get. And that's that's a conversation I also want to have with you. And sorry if I ramble, please, so you can check me.
We're here to ramble. We're here.
I can talk forever. Be careful. I might miss all my things I have to do today. The main issue that I had so it was a changing narrative with the shooting, right? The Atlanta one, we're going to talk about that. And, in the beginning, it was like outright hate crime, right? If that's what everyone just assumed. And then it changed into, he has a sexual addiction and he was using this as a way to get rid of his temptations or whatever. It's still racial. It's still racial. You can't disengage what it means to go and target a massage parlor and what that means when the majority of the people that work in those places are people that look like you and me. And that still is that. I mean, now it just highlights other issues. And I was having this conversation with my partner about trafficking, human trafficking, which is, it's across the board. It's not just Asian people. Lots of people get trafficked into this country and slavery is still real. It's crazy. Yep. These people will never escape. And, what I see is highlighting, not using the new reason that he said, also, who trusts a guy like that? He's like an insane person, but like trust the killer of many people that it's not racially motivated. Because I mean, he's not, I wouldn't trust him anyways, but
the jokes were like, do you believe also if he's like, I didn't kill those people, suddenly they're not dead? Like, is that how it goes?
I know. It's like someone's just making up any opinion and you're like, well, that's fine. And he's he's just someone that you have to watch, because already you see this sympathy from the police force when in the way that they're communicating about him, like, oh, poor guy, had such a bad day. Everyone's like,
Yeah.
the fuck, go eat a pint of ice cream. Like, don't
Right.
go kill a
Have a
bunch of
normal
people.
person bad day. No, I'm really glad that you brought that part up because that reminded me of something that I came across on Instagram and I actually reposted and kind of talked about it. But there was a post of a woman who was the daughter of someone who had actually worked with some of those women that actually died. And she was telling her story about how, kind of like the unseen part of this story is that these women, not all of them, I can't speak on behalf of all of them, but there are plenty of women that are trafficked through sex trafficking, taken against their will, brought into doing things that they don't want to do because they have no choice. And that apparently was part of the story also that was happening. And my mom actually is a professor and she's been focusing her research on human trafficking for over 30 years. And it kind of like it shifted something within me because it's something that I've grown up with learning about just because it's my mom's work. And she brought me into her research and conversations when I was pretty young. And then it wasn't until maybe like 10 years ago I realized I was like, oh, human trafficking is a very serious topic and not a lot of people know the intricacies and the details of this, and also how prevalent it is. Like, it is happening not just in like a seedy strip bar area that you like look and you're like, oh, that's probably a sketchy looking place. It's happening in every city, every glossy, shiny place that you can think of. Like, it's happening, you just don't see it. And what I thought was so kind of a horrible thing that people were overlooking as part of the story is that, like, there's a reason why this happens. There's a demand for these services, even though obviously these women are being forced to do it. And the clientele are the same people, same identity as this guy who decided to go out and murder these women because he decided that that was the face of his sexual addiction.
Yeah.
And there's just something so tragic about that, It's just like, how do you start to unravel that when that is like the root of the problem? And there's so many like years of trauma, so many years of like things being put into place to allow that to happen. So that, Asian women become the victims over and over and over again.
Yeah, and I think there's what I like is there's a lot of like academic literature that's kind of people are taking little bits of it, but they are sharing like academic papers that have been written, long time ago. This is stuff if you've ever taken like Asian American studies or something in college, which I totally have. It's existed, and this idea of how like people like how Western culture has dehumanized Asian women for so long. Like, you're not even human, you're valued even less than that. And it can be seen through basically through how they were even brought into America. Why are they even here? Like, the earliest people that came to the States were like railroad workers.
Yeah.
A lot of women were imported as prostitutes, but then probably not by choice. And then the culture here thinking that's what they are, and they're a bad influence, and like sending them all back. And obviously there was there were like restrictions on immigration also. And just using that to create this lens of what an Asian woman is. And it's even there's been like literature written where people just talk about like this, this little flower that shouldn't be larger than a 13-year-old boy, like the way that people talk about it is
like a
so
porcelain doll or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's so gross, and it is this thing where like, I specifically have spoken out about this in particular, just this fetishism that goes on with Asian women. And it's so gross. And like everyone has dealt with it. I don't know a single Asian friend of mine, female friend that hasn't been gawked at and been like, ooh, me love you long time. Or like, that Austin Powers reference of Fukuyu, Fukumi. It was, when you watch it and you're not thinking about it, yeah, it seems really funny, but you don't realize what kind of the negative stereotype that it is enforcing that affects people in a very real way, and
Absolutely.
and it's just so gross. And what gave people the courage to be able to behave that way towards us, you know?
Yeah, but you hit the nail on the head, right? It's like if you see it in a movie, you see people talking like that on TV and in songs, you're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, then I can say that." And like, the same aggressions are working on the opposite end where us as Asian people, we're like, "Oh, I won't like call it out because I don't want it to turn into this whole thing." But
Mhm.
I'm glad you called that out as well because I think microaggressions are something that take a long time to understand, and they take a lot of effort and a lot of energy to understand if you have not experienced them yourself, which
Mhm.
I fully understand. I think it relates to the same thing where people just hadn't heard about the incidents that were happening because they weren't directly affected by them. Like you mentioned already, we're so familiar with the microaggressions that people come at us with. It's like asking like, "Oh, where are you from?" Like, "Where are you really from?" Or like,
I
I'm
hate
sure
that.
you've heard the same thing where people are like, "Oh, you're so pretty for an Asian." And you're like, "What? Well, okay, like, thank you, I guess. Like, is
Yeah.
that a compliment?" And I was talking to Sydney, who helps run some things behind the scenes here at Lost Resort, and she shared a lot of horrible examples of like every time she's gone out, because she likes to go out alone and get dressed up for herself. She's like, men are always saying these like weird Asian jokes at her, like it's just so gross. But I do feel like it's you're right. It's important that we like start shouting about these and telling people like this is what we deal with on a daily basis. I saw you were
Mhm.
writing about it and you even had people like responding to you on your Twitter with like kind of offensive things and
Yeah.
just showing that we're going to talk back. We're going to say that it's wrong. I think
Yeah. Sometimes they're just trolls and they're just like, let us ignite that flame inside you. And I try to be really conscientious where someone's saying something so ignorant, I know what they're going for, versus someone who's saying something ignorant because they're not getting the message,
yeah.
and picking and choosing which battles to fight. And some people may not like it. If I don't like your opinion and it's my platform, I don't need to keep it there. And that's what I've been doing to keep myself sort of protected from people that will harm my own mental health. And I'm like, hey, it's just the way that it is. And to go further, yeah, people have, there's just been long-standing thing just with women in general where there's catcalling. When have you ever seen a woman be like, ooh, I love your Junko jeans and your like weird, I don't know, your Oakley glasses. Like no one's have ever said that to some guy
Your
walking on the
ugly
street.
glasses.
I don't know. I don't know anyone even said that because no one wears either of those things anymore. But
It's like this outfit you're painting is really
I
something,
know, I know,
honestly.
I know. I was just like, what year is this? No, but like, it's like no one's just like, ooh, I love your beard or something. Like I
Yeah.
mean, maybe that's like the only thing maybe someone could say, but really complimentary. I think a woman says a compliment, they mean it in a very nice platonic way. But
Yeah, totally.
like, it's just crazy. I remember I was walking on the street. I don't remember how long ago it was, but it was me and a friend. It was like Hollywood Boulevard. I don't go there very often, but pre-COVID, of course. We're walking on the street and some guy's like, ooh, like, hey, ladies, saying something super annoying, but we've learned to ignore. Like all women have learned this, like, don't acknowledge it. It's just going to get worse, whatever.
Mhm.
So we pass and we choose not to acknowledge it. And then the guy's like, oh, you fucking lesbians, whatever, bitches. And I was like, whoa, you
Yeah.
know that is the thing that we have to deal with. And on top of that, that's women, of course, all women have to deal with that kind of shit. But there is this thing about the way that Asian women are fetishized where it's like guys are assuming really gross things about, or assuming that you will do things that you may not want to, like a musician who's pretty well known, she's Asian, and she contacted me and she said she overheard a guy saying, "Oh, I heard Asian girls will take it up the butt." It's like, can't, like, I don't judge anyone and where you put whatever, as
Yeah.
long as you're consenting and you want to do that. But you can't make these assumptions about women and go into a relationship with them being like, I know that she's gonna do this,
Yeah.
you
It
know?
is a really bizarre thing when you feel like your unique humanness and your personality and everything is just whittled down to like some caricature or some stereotype. And there's something like so that's like a very specific vulnerable place to be in because like I mean there's so many layers of like just being a woman in general can be so scary, just like trying to exist and operate in the real world. But then also like when your identity is like, this is what I look like, this is like the culture that I know, this is who I am, and people like, you walk around and suddenly you're hyper aware that people are like thinking all these weird things about you, like, oh, she like would be great in bed or something, and you're like, ew, like why is that what you're thinking about when you could just like
Yeah.
meet me and get to know who I am as like a person? I'm no different than like the white person next to me. It is a really strange thing, and it's I feel like I've grown up luckily not really having too many of those kind of like really out of body experiences of feeling really singled out because I'm Asian, but sadly feeling that more and more, like when I go into certain towns or places that aren't as like diverse and wonderful as like LA or California, I do feel like I'm like, am I welcome here? Like, are people thinking certain things? Like they feel like they just want to shove me over because like I'm not going to fight back or something. Like it is like a really deeply scarring kind of feeling,
Yeah, and then there's this new area of my mind that I'm reaching, which is like complete like irrational rage. So
Yeah.
I know
Not
that
irrational. Not irrational.
see, I know like I'm sure you feel it too. It's this sense of hopelessness, but the sense of sadness, the sense of frustration, the sense of anger. It's all these things because you're like, there's a problem. I don't know what I can do about it. These people are doing something awful. It makes me really angry. It's very multifaceted, the kind of anguish we're all experiencing as a community. It is like this collective thing that's happening, which is so sad because no one should have like collective pain. But that is the thing. It's a very Korean thing, actually, the idea of like collective suffering. But
is it?
Yeah, the like I'll send you a link, but there's this whole idea of Han, right? And Han was created as this idea of like universal suffering amongst Korean people, which I know sounds really sad. Yeah. They're not sad people, but it's this thing where like, because the country had to endure so much, whether it's like being invaded by another country in this country and that country repeatedly, we won't name names, but like it's a thing. And then I had read about this and I was like, oh, okay, word. So like the roots of our people are really sad. And then I go read about it further and realize that the idea of Han was created in the 1800s, and prior to that, it had not existed. So people were happy, like the country was happy, and they had to create a term to describe the kind of feeling that they felt by constantly being in between, I don't know, or being owned by other countries, essentially, I guess.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I actually read a book that kind of talked a little bit about that, and I didn't realize that was like a Korean collective like feeling, but it makes sense. And I think, weirdly, like the more personal relation I make with that story is like something that I talk a lot to friends about over the past week, was just like knowing how much like we as children of immigrants who have like dealt with just a plethora of hardships, whether it's like the typical story of like, I came here with like $6 in my pocket and I like made it, to like, being like, you have not being able to speak the language and getting made fun of for it, and like having to learn and actually like, have a whole job in your second language that you're not fluent in, and feeling that kind of like awkwardness, because that like sense of not belonging is universal, even if you don't speak the language, even if you are going to a different country. And like all of us like who were born in the US, who like are American in every way, but like still have that connection because like our families have told us those stories. I feel like we hold so much like pride for them and so much love for like everything they've endured, so that we can go on and like, live our American dream. So just knowing that like they've already gone through all of that hardship, and then now are in this new phase of like, now they have to worry about their own safety and like just existing. And even if they do speak English already, and even if they don't, like they just don't feel safe like taking a walk in Chinatown or whatever, little Tokyo, wherever they might live. I feel like that like just brings up so much sadness and anger in that like mishmash of anger, sadness, tired, fear, emotion that you described.
Totally. And another conversation I've had with like other friends that are Asian is just the targeting. I mean, obviously the violence has been across the board. It's not like there are younger people and older people, but we can say like the pretty bad ones, at least the ones that have been public, are their attacks on our elders, people that are kind of older. Most of the people, yeah, everyone was pretty much on the older side as far as the women that were shot in Atlanta. One woman was in her 50s, and then from that it was like 60s and 70s. So
Yeah.
the thing that really upsets me is how they're targeting the most vulnerable of our community, which is, first of all, they're women. That already puts them at a disadvantage. They're immigrant women. They're like lower income, at least from my understanding. And yeah, it's just like a part of me is like, come at me, bro. Like, watch me. I have a taser and I have like mace.
I
and
know.
like
I'm ready to throw hands.
I know. I'm just like, watch what happens if you try to get at me, and and all these things. And the idea behind also the idea of being, the other. It's a very talked about concept right now. Also publicly, is like it's always been very hard for Asian people to feel like they belong in this country. And I can look at people may look at my sister. She's like much older than me and assume she doesn't speak English, and she's like, she works for the government, and she's literally like there. Or my brother-in-law, who's also like raised here, and he's like a federal judge, but people might assume he doesn't speak English too, and we can't do much about that. But the people who look the most other are probably our elders, and they're the least kind of assimilated, and they probably speak the least amount of English, and because of that, I feel as though they're being targeted more. And maybe these people know better than to like try to like go and get at you, Valerie, or me, or like any of our friends that are like big, buff, 6 foot tall, like Asian dudes. Like, people might know better, but not our like 5'1" little Asian grandpas. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The only thing that like brought me some like angry joy was that story about the elder Asian woman in San Francisco who got attacked, who like hit the guy back and sent him away in a stretcher. I was like, that's right. Even the tiny Asian grandma will fight back.
I was like, I aspire one day to be an angry, like a very like I don't know, like amazing, fiery Asian grandma. That will be me. Trying to think of like the best word. I was like, I wanted to say zesty, but I was like, why would I say zesty? I think I'm just like at a loss of words right now. But
I got the vibe. I got the gist of that.
Exactly. So, I mean, there are moments like that, but it was also just broke my heart to see how like angry and how much in pain she was when they had filmed that little clip. Also, the amazing thing that she donated all the money back, or I believe her family's donating all the money back to the community. Over $1 million.
Someone in chat just called that out too. Victoria Rollins said she just donated almost $1 million to stop AAPI hate, which is the ultimate boss move. After you send the guy home in a stretcher, then you're like, let me just donate all this money that I raised because of you.
I know. Someone should take that board and like frame it and put it in a museum somewhere. But
seriously.
It's just it's so sad, and it's ongoing. Weirdly, I don't know why, I felt like when that news happened, I almost thought maybe the violence would stop, because it got such it had incredible news coverage, that shooting across the board on every single news platform. But it doesn't end. Just because that happened doesn't mean anything ends. Just because you're doing something about it now doesn't mean that it's going to end. And another person was like punched in the face with her child, like, or something. A girl, like, there was the woman that I think got robbed, or she was like holding onto the car. I don't know if you saw that one. That's a recent one. It just fills me with so much anguish. And then I try to think about, what do we do to preserve our mental health? And I don't know about you. It's been really hard for me. And I just, it's hard, because in an effort to be responsible, like, you have to know what's happening, but then it's been really hard. So I'm wondering how it's been for you, just like speaking on it constantly, taking it in, whether you feel like sometimes you want to take like a little break from the news, or.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's been so hard. I kind of have just taken my own body's direction of taking it day by day. I know that, last week was especially hard, like I mentioned before, of just like every day it felt like there was something new to be like either sad, upset, angry, or like scared about, with all the news that was coming out. I took like a mental health day on Friday, and I'm really thankful that like I work somewhere and I'm surrounded by people that are supportive and like, reach out and are sending those messages and calling and being like, what can I do? I'm just here for you, letting you know. But I mean, I think that's one thing, like if people who are watching are looking to like take away an action or something, I do hope that people who are allies do think about ways to help us shoulder this emotion that we're feeling, because that's just something like I do fight this guilt that I have like on days where I'm like I need to tune out and just like watch a bad TV show and like not think about the news and not read about all these people getting attacked and hurt, and like donating as much as I can, but also feeling like it's not enough. I hope people just like step up and like call out to people who aren't Asian and say like, why aren't you speaking up about this? Like, this is important to like your community, especially if you're in the music community, because it's like there's so much, and dance music especially, there's so much dance music, like aesthetic, sound, whatever, that's like taken and like appreciated from Asian culture. And like I just hope that those people know that like even if it feels awkward or weird to be speaking up about it because you're not Asian, and like maybe you'll think that people are like, oh, why are you bothering me about this? Like it actually makes a huge difference if you talk about it, so we don't feel this like constant need to be shouting and no one's listening. That's just what I hope that people take away. And I hope that it becomes like cool if it becomes a trendy thing to keep posting this like Instagram block that says stop AAPI hate. Like just keep doing it. I don't care. Like that's cool. Let's make it trendy. But yeah, I feel you. It's been really hard to just like balance that feeling of like wanting to stay in tune and wanting to like find a proactive way forward. That's one thing that I've been struggling with is like, I feel like there's so many great resources of people who are sharing like websites and donation links and the GoFundMe's when they're popping up. But besides donating, and besides the few vigils and like, gatherings that happened over this weekend, it doesn't feel clear to me that like we're making enough noise for it to create actual change. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you feel about that, or if you've seen any other resources that have helped you not feel that way, but
yeah, I think I really empathize with a lot of what you're saying, and also the ways that people can help. I think that is great if people can help us shoulder the burden of sharing this information. I know, it's going to be a long road, like it is for many, as we can already see. Like there's like anti-Muslim stuff. What we seen last year with the Black Lives Matters, and what we're seeing right now. It's really hard to be faced with, this strife, but these are all things that indicate, we need to realize when we're going through these moments that it's a moment of change, and hopefully for the better, because what we were doing is existing the exact same way, but we didn't say anything, and
That's
if
true.
we can continue to talk and have the conversation for people to understand when something is something is happening to them that is racist. Because I know a lot of Asian people, they're just so easy, they don't even see it anymore. They just brush it off. They don't realize that someone's belittling them because they're Asian. Someone's going like this in a car, they're like, oh, I'm just so used to it now. No, these are all microaggressions. It's not cool. And no one does that to other people, and now that they know, they're like, oh, I didn't realize this entire time one of my coworkers was being like saying a bunch of fucked up shit to me. I just laughed because I didn't want to make it weird. You don't have to laugh. You don't have to say it's okay if someone does something to you that's terrible, and that's across the board. Don't let anyone gaslight you into feeling like your feelings don't matter. But yeah, we have a long ways to go, but America is on a path of changing. And I truly, truly believe that this next generation is more evolved, more conscious, more aware. I know everyone's sick of saying the word woke, but I'm not going to say it, but you know what I mean, and like, people are, like the younger, like even, I don't even know what how far Gen Z goes until, but like if I see someone who's like in middle school, they're talking about identity, they're talking about what pronouns they want to use. They're talking about what they can do to help other people. It's not cool to bully people anymore, which it wasn't that way when I was growing up, you know?
Yeah. So
And
true.
and that consciousness where it's like cool. There's also TikTok culture too. So I don't know, they're like embroiled this like consciousness slash TikTok, but you know,
Yeah.
it's I still believe in them. You know, I still believe in like
Yeah.
the ultra kids on the come up right now, and I believe in us as an adults, and I hope that the older generation will do something. You know, I worry that they care the least and they're not
Yeah.
going to be on this planet for much longer, so it's really unfair that their opinion matters more than ours, but you know, that's just me being really harsh, but it is kind of true. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like an extra, yeah, no, I think everything you're saying is so valid and like very uplifting, helps me remember that we are going through a period of change and that's why it does feel hard. And I think even further than that is like, people should celebrate Asian people, Asian artists, Asian creators, Asian businesses, whatever it is.
Mhm.
I think that that's like, as horrible as it is sometimes, like money truly does speak the loudest sometimes. So it's like wherever you put your dollars, like support Asian people that are like putting in their time and their effort into not only putting themselves out there, but the Asian restaurant that you love, that their food is really cheap. Like it's not easy to do that. Support them and just help them survive while times are hard, not only because of COVID, but also just because of emotional, physical burden right now.
100%.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, okay, I have so many thoughts racing through my brain. I was like, which one should I talk about?
I
Um,
know.
yeah, I guess, and I completely blanked. Now I was gonna say something I thought was like really poignant, but now it's like completely gone. Um, you know, someone pointed out this kind of fact where, you know, if you're this is like legit massage therapist, you can people have to realize how cheap it is to go to an Asian massage parlor, you know, for real, you know, Thai massage, back massage, how cheap that they're making it so much cheaper versus if you go to sports massage or somewhere else, it's like 100, $200, you know.
Yeah.
um this is this is something that, you know, Asian immigrants with the massage parlor, they're not afforded. And there's even this concept about owning a massage parlor because it's so much associated with like sex work.
Mhm.
People are ashamed to even say that's a place that they work at or own, even when it's legitimate. And my partner was telling me that he has a friend whose mom owns like a really like a pretty like well-known one in Koreatown, but she's super embarrassed to say it, and it's an established place, you know.
That's so
If I owned a
sad.
massage parlor, I'd be like, "Yo, you know, you want to get like that knot
The
out the
best
back? Got
massage.
you." Yeah,
Yeah,
like I'd be so proud, but it's like it didn't even occur to me that the association was so tightly linked that it's embarrassing for people to say that, you know,
that's so
because
sad.
they don't want people to misconstrue what they do for a living, and I think that's really sad. It's so sad,
That
but
is
you know,
sad. And I mean, again, these are just things that like even you and I, like right now we're hearing that story and we're like, wow, we've never even thought about that being an issue for someone, for a business owner, for a massage spa owner. So I feel like just hearing these stories, they help me definitely. I feel like they probably help you and hopefully people listening as well. And I think if anything, like, to end on the positive note, I guess it's truly that people are listening. And they can't afford not to anymore because like Asian influence is everywhere
mhm,
and appreciated by so many people that I think that it is going to be a long road ahead, but hopefully people stand up for us, speak out for us,
mhm.
and take action. I know you have to go soon because you're preparing for something really exciting. And I do want to end on another positive note. So I want to give you some time to shout out. Obviously, hopefully, people who are in the chat like know of you and are following you and already are aware that you're doing something really exciting this weekend. But tell us more about it.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I feel okay. I get weird when I have to do promo stuff, but we um basically, Last Resort, in conjunction with me, we're doing this amazing 2-day streaming event here on Twitch, and it's in support of women. It's called Every Woman, and we are highlighting some of the most amazing female musicians. We have very interesting and insightful panels with some very OGs, powerful, smart women in the music industry and beyond. There'll be more information. I'm sure we can put it in the chat. I don't have it all on me, and as well as the fact that I just don't know because I forget most things. But yeah, it's great. We have like Aluna from Aluna George. We have like Tinashe will be performing with me, which I think is pretty cool.
Cool.
And yeah, there's the list of people involved it's just, I'm so blown away by the, I don't know, that anyone would even want to be a part of this, but just seeing who we got, I think it just shows that everyone should participate and watch. And again, like I said, in regards to the sort of Asian American plight that we're dealing with right now, if you just watch and you educate yourself and you really digest the things that people have to say and you support them and their art or whatever it is that they're doing, that is you participating in change. That's you doing something to make a difference. And if we're talking about the little things that you can do, yeah, just learn, learn and support, and you'll make a really big impact on all these women. So yeah, let's not forget it's Women's History Month. But
I know.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about that too. So, there's the racial plight, but also just gender equality is such a big thing right now. And yeah, women really are getting the like worst end of the stick. I don't even know how that phrase goes. Is it the worst something?
The short end of the stick. That's what it is.
Short end of the stick. Yeah. I'm not good with puns or like sayings, but I'll just make up things that sound like they make sense. Yes.
I do that all the time. I'm like, so glad.
Milk under a bridge. Sorry.
I'm so glad that you are planning this event. And yes, it is still Women's History Month. Don't you forget it. We're still in March. You still got to celebrate women, but particularly Asian women, and especially you, Toki, because you were just the most wonderful person ever. Tune in if you guys are in the chat. I know a lot of people are being really positive and saying thank you for the conversation, which thank you to you guys who are out there watching and who tuned in this whole time for giving us a space to just air out our feelings and grievances and just how we're processing, because I really just wanted this conversation to be that. And I do feel like it's just nice to like have this kind of a conversation with someone like yourself. Like, we are going through similar things, and I appreciate your insight so much. And I think that a lot of people in the chat do as well. So if you're in the chat, if you don't already follow, subscribe to Last Resort TV so you get notified about Every Woman this weekend. It's going to be really good. And thank you, Jen, Toki. Yeah. I'm going to let you go so you can do your hard work and your busy schedule for the week, but appreciate you so much. I really do.
Thank you all. Oh, by the way, there's only one thing I forgot I was supposed to say. I believe we're doing a contest, but I don't know where the information is for it. Sorry.
Okay. I think, well, hopefully they can find some more info on your socials. I feel like I saw there's something there. So there's a giveaway.
Someone help me. I don't know what to say. Yeah, we're doing a giveaway. So it's a meet and greet. We're giving away Native Instruments Complete 11, I believe, which is super baller, as well as some merch stuff. So I don't know how the meet and greet's going to go. It's probably going to be like this. So I apologize in advance for anyone who wins. It's going to be weird.
If you can't get enough of her, go sign up for the giveaway. She's a busy woman, okay? So she has a lot to remember. So forgive her for not remembering the details.
I need to write things down in the future. I have a notepad just for that.
Oh my God. I was going to say, if we had time, we should draw each other. But, next time we're on a panel together, I'm going to draw you because I owe you a cartoon.
I know. I feel like the last panel we were on, I was like about to draw one of you again, like round 2, because it was a different panel and your hair was down. I was like, I should do another one. Now I don't know what it is.
I thought I saw you drawing during that one too. I was like, I know, but I was like, gonna whip a cartoon out.
I was like, oh no, but I have to like pay attention to this one, and I was like, okay, I should stop because I don't want people to see like why is she? I was like looking down constantly. Yeah, another day, another caricature of you on.
I can't wait.
Zoom or whatever this on a streaming
Whatever
thing.
this is.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not whatever. It's been a
All
hard
right.
week, you guys. I'm tapped out, but super happy to be on this. And thank you, Valerie, for having me and having this very necessary conversation.
Of course. You are the best. Good luck this weekend, and I'll see you at Every Woman. See you in the chat.
Yep. Will do.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.